Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. We are going to be continuing with April's exceptional story, A Dream of Innocence. In the last episode, we freed a dreamer from an experiment, and we are now showing them around London. Take a stroll around the city. Your new friend has only been here in dreams. You tread the dim streets and damp pavements. The city was a muddle of stories and secrets when I dreamed about it, but now I can touch it. It's so heavy, and everything's so close. Can we go somewhere quiet? You head to Jekyll Gardens and walk by the lake. The abbess is by still water. She went to a place under a railway bridge, the fifth one on the track to hell. There's a lake there. I don't think she meant to bring me here. She wanted to change herself, and she made me as practice. I'd like to meet her again. Intriguing. You have a location for the abbess, under a bridge on the line to hell. Planning an expedition can wait until tomorrow. The new dreamer has been watching you more than friendship or curiosity would suggest. He looks away when he meets your gaze. You have a few hours to spend with the new dreamer. Outside, the after-work crowds seek out an evening's entertainment. The new dreamer, fortified by a day in London, wants to join them. Oh, two options. Spend the evening in friendship. You have a handful of hours and worlds to tell, or we can spend the evening in a romance. Only the most liberal definition would have the new dreamer as human. Still, you've noticed his interest in you. Let's spend the evening in friendship, shall we? The coffee house is full of the contrarian crowd, but you find a corner away from the finger-pointing arguments. The new dreamer doesn't want to talk about the game of flukes. Over steaming coffee and pastries, he asks you about the habits of the Empress and the workings of steam engines and the price of soup. When it comes to your turn to ask questions about his life before the abbess's tank, the new dreamer shrugs. I'll show you. I'll be strong enough to send you a dream soon. He's going to send us a dream. Well, what could possibly go wrong there? But we have a new quality. We've become friends. The first 4 bridges on the railway line to hell are called Insurrection, Anarchy, Tumult, and Temerity. You are heading for the abbess's location under the 5th bridge, Descent. The journey is not a great distance, but it is in the wild lands northwest of London. The guard of the Moloch Street Express is uncommonly inhospitable concerning passengers getting off early, so you'll have to go on foot. The new dreamer will accompany you. Well, let's head out. Stout boots and a brown paper package of potted meat sandwiches will get you and the new dreamer there. You heft your luggage and lock the front door. You know where the train tracks leading to hell leave London, so you start to follow them as the streets give way to seldom trod tracks. The lights of London glimmer in an indifferent goodbye. The land just beyond the still inhabited parts of London came down with the fall. You can see cobblestones and red bricks amongst the tussocks and gorse. The darkness outside the city slows your pace, but the glint of false starlight on steel rails keep your course straight. A lonely mushroom farm marks the edge of civilization. You follow the tracks as the land turns to ashen waste away from the city. It's no more than a day's journey. But London hurtles against the river as though avoiding having to look inland. You dodge a patrol of uniformed goat demons carrying out an inspection on the rails. Oh, we can enter the place. Under the bridge named Descent, you can make out a few flickering fires and the black curve of a lake shore beyond. Drawing closer, you can see there is a gathering of tents beneath the bridge, where its supports are smeared in a substance the shade of honey. The Marias? The settlement under the tracks is made up of tarpaulins and sailcloth held up by pilfered railway sleepers. The inhabitants are mainly Rubbery Men, although there are a few slack-eyed humans and worn clay men. The lemon salt smell of the Rubbery Men will stay in your clothes for weeks. The residents cast suspicious eyes at you, and a few hoot mournfully at your approach, but you can enter the place without challenge. The Rubbery Men here have discarded the dull brown suits of their London brethren for more varied apparel. One wears a bold crimson scarf, another a sky blue bonnet. There is a rough sign made from a pallet. The chalk letters on it read, "Welcome to the Marias." In the Marias, time will pass as you act. Some actions will only be available at particular times. Okay. Ooh. We have a few options here. This screen looks a bit weird because it's got rid of the decks of cards. We can passing time in the Marias? I don't think we want to do that yet, do we? We want to pass time? As with everywhere in the Neath, there is no sun or moon to provide a sense of time passing in the Marias. You can go under the rails. The steel-framed bridge, called Descent, passes over a narrow end of a lake. You can travel to London, isn't that where we just came from? Does the mud and squamorous squalor compare to the glories of the fifth city? The lake, Marias sits at one end of a small, still lake, or the main settlement, pot-holed tracks ankle-deep in water, meander between improvised tents. Let's just click under the rails and see what happens. The steel-framed bridge called Descent passes over a narrow end of a lake. Around the base of the bridge are great masses of pale amber, draped around the heavy steel struts. A train rattles the bridge twice a day. You can follow a sharp sound. You hear a series of sharp cracks echo around the gorge. After a moment, you ascertain that they are, thankfully, to be gunfire. The sound is coming from directly under the railway bridge. A Rubbery Man, with a mallet and a steel chisel, is carving a slab of pale limestone into a small copy of a stone ark from Wilmot's End. Around him are the other examples of his work, including what look like sculptures. Interesting. The mason stops for a moment, hooting quietly and arrhythmically in lieu of panting. Rubbery Men don't sweat. Of course, but this one is glistening. There are simple tables here, stone pots, and he's making what looks like a door. All copies of designs found in London. There are sculptures, too. A knee-height Saint Fiac, a shuttered palace in limestone, a new Newgate as tall as you, hanging from a steel bridge girder. The work is impressively detailed and precise, but like the furniture, there are no original designs here. Onwards. Okay, well, let's do passing time. We'll see what happens. We'll just go at the top, and we'll work our way down. Or we could meet the abbess. Because I feel like that seems important, and it wasn't there before. Okay, let's meet with the abbess, just in case this is a timed thing. You have been in the Marias some little time when, from an anonymously drab little tent, a woman who must be the abbess appears. She's short, grey in hair and complexion, but her stare could give a charging rhinoceros pause. The abbess regards you with inclined head and waits for you to speak. Well, let's introduce ourselves. The time has come to meet the object of your investigations. When the abbess speaks, her accent owes more to Oxford than France. Welcome to the Marias. You're not the usual flotsam that drifts here, so unless you're perhaps an anthropologist of Rubbery Men, I have to assume you're here for me. So, perhaps you're here to spy on me, or to interrogate me, or drag me to the bazaar in chains. I understand. I was in that area of business myself until quite recently. But be patient. I have only a little work to do here, and then what happens to me won't be important anymore. Now, come inside for some tea, and we can talk. The abbess's tent contains little more than a stove and a camping bed. She brushes a little mud off her teapot and pours. Your hostess looks like the sort who might shoot one over tea with a smile. But you're here now. Ask the abbess about the Marias. This enclave of unusual rubbery men is her creation. You sip the expensive oolong and ask about your surroundings. The abbess replies with a speed and precision that makes you think of a practiced speech. The rubbery men are the slaves. Both they and their masters come from far away. The rubbery men were made to infiltrate human society and have no culture of their own. They have no poetry, no philosophy, and no politics. I have gathered a few rubbery men I could find with a spark of will to them and brought them here. In the Marias they can live free from their masters and become something better and more worthy than they are. Let's talk about the abbess's workshop in London. The abbess has been up to more than rubbery politics. The abbess nods at your questions. You see, the flukes have arts far beyond our own. One could be remade anew with the correct vital essences. One could be revitalized, scoured of one's sins and mistakes. In London, I was trying to... The abbess looks from you to the new dreamer. Her eyes widen and she spills a little tea on the muddy floor. My goodness! You're finished, and you're alive! It worked! The abbess rushes over and starts examining the new dreamer. Can you talk? Who are you? The new dreamer says, You dreamed of new birth and then abandoned me. Was I not what you wanted? Were you not joyous at my creation? What do you want from me now? The abbess is silent and looks at the muddy floor. After a long moment, the abbess looks at you and says, Would you leave us? I owe my creation something of an explanation. The new dreamer nods and says, I'll find you tonight. Oh great, we can carry on exploring. Let's go to the lake. Marias sits at one end of a lake. Well, a small, still lake. The railway bridge straddles the lake's narrowest point. No bats will fly over the lake. Investigate a cartilaginous clamour. An agitated shoal of rubbery men has congregated on the sodden path that constitutes the main road of the Marias. They squeak and bray, and one has tentacles over his eyes. Their concerned warblings echo across the camp. The object in the mud is a black-green branching spike that has the chalky polyps of coral. It can't have been there long. The Marias is nowhere near the sea. Someone put it there. Whatever it is, the crowd thickens as you watch. Most of the camp's population must have congregated here, hooting and flapping their tentacles anxiously. What does this object mean to them? A decision is apparently reached, for moments later, the Rubbery Mason arrives with his mallet. The matter is briefly, but noisily, disposed of. The new dreamer is at the lake. Okay, let's go have a look. Most of the rubbery inhabitants of the Marias are under their tarpaulins, resting. The new dreamer stands by the lake, staring out. Let's stand companionably with the new dreamer. He may want to be relieved of solitude. The new dreamer speaks to you without turning around. I dream. I remember. I cannot do otherwise. And while I have this, he waves a delicate hand to you, I cannot dream far. But perhaps I can go far enough to show you something worth seeing. I remember a lake by the monastery. Part of me used to go there to laugh and cry when the silence became too much. I wonder if I'll ever be able to go there. Speak with your friend at the lake's shore. Ask her how the rest of her meeting went with the abbess. The abbess cares for her own improvement, not for me. Her excitement was that of a natural philosopher, not a mother. I think her path and mine will cross just this once. The new dreamer skips a stone across the still lake, watching it bounce away. You'll have to sleep to dream with me, won't you? I suppose I'll have to do the same now. So we have two options. Head to your makeshift bed. What somnolent diversions does the new dreamer have for you? Or we can refuse the dream, learn more of the Marias. You will have to dream with the new dreamer. However, you can return to do this on a different night. A small part of me wants to explore this place a little bit more. Refuse to dream. You do not wish to dream tonight. Sleep evades you entirely and you stroll without purpose along the still lake shore. Only the movements of rubbery men mark the morning. I want to try some of these other ones. Let's do just passing time. That is literally just passing time. Okay. As with everywhere in the Neath, there is no sun or moon to provide a sense of passing time in the Marias. There is a rhythm to the place, though. Sometimes the rubbery men dive into the still lake, at other times they gather amber or form circles to hoot and waggle their tentacles. Yeah, so we can pick what time we want to go to, or we can naturally progress. That's kind of cool, I like that. Let's do the travel to London. Or not. That's what I thought it was. The main settlement. Okay, so the only one I haven't done is the main settlement. Potholed tracks, ankle deep in water, meander between improvised tents. There are no lamps in the Marias, and fires are few. Despite the squalor, the Rubbery Men here dress gaily. One wears a splendid magenta sari, another sports mustard tweeds. Well, let's examine the Rubbery Peacock. A Rubbery Man is splashing his way through the muddy tracks of the Marias, strutting like a prize bantam. A small crowd has gathered around him, flapping their tentacles in an approximation of appreciation and delight. Who is this ostentatious Rubbery Man? The mustache. The Rubbery celebrity turns, and you see he's adorned with a comically large, false mustache. The bristles of half a broom have been pulled out and strapped to his face. Is this a disguise? It's clearly not going to fool anyone human, but the Rubberys seem very pleased with their innovation. Is it that they've had an idea at all? That the freedom and independence of the Marias has stirred originality within their Rubbery imaginings? Is there something different in the afternoon now? There is. Wait, is there something different at night under the rails too? There is. Okay, so I'm gonna we'll do the main settlement again. It's going to get a little bit confusing, but I'm going to do the main settlement again. Yeah, around the Marias, under tarpaulins and makeshift tents, are bathtubs, horse troughs, and tanner's tanks. These improvised cauldrons are filled with a thick, yellow liquid that has chunks of amber floating in it. The Rubbery Men sometimes dip themselves in these tanks, and are often not quite the same when they come out. Currently, one Rubbery Man is waiting for its dunked companion to emerge, anxiously chirping and hopping from one appendage to the other. The Rubbery Man shakes like a wet mastiff, sending droplets of the yellow liquid flying. A little lands on your wrist. It stings like alcohol in a wound, and smells like a lemon orchard. The Rubbery Man near you reaches out a tentacle to its emergent companion. The yellow-smeared Rubbery bats it away with its own tentacle and marches off towards the lake. You're left with a disconsolate figure, whooping and cooing sadly. The Rubbery kicks at the tin bathtub and trudges away. What a strange ritual. So now it's nighttime? Is there something different at the night? There is. Speak with the honey-mazed deacon. His cassock is ruined, and his mind is far from here, but the Rubbery Men keep him fed and out of the lake. The honey-mazed deacon strolls happily around the Marias, heedless of the potholes and ankle-deep pools in what passes for streets. He motions, picking fruit from trees and stroking animals. He is having a lovely time, but his eyes are empty. The deacon doesn't reply when you speak to him. He's addressing the sky. There is not one serpent in the garden, but many. And we must return to the first garden and far forgotten grove. But it is too far for an exodus of the body. We must travel a more subtle way. It's morning again and we got a tale of terror. Okay, let's go back under the rails. That's the sharp sound. I'm just going to do it again. Here we go. Pick yourself up. As you pick your way between towards the bridge, a Rubbery Man barges into you from behind and sends you sprawling to the mud. As assaults go, it's quite comfortable. It's like being smacked in the back with an antique divian. Ouch. You rise to your feet, and a moment later, a head-sized chunk of glim shatters into shards where you were. Your calf is cut by the shrapnel, but your rubbery saviour grabs your hand in both tentacles and drags you to underneath the railway bridge, where dozens of rubbery men are sheltering. Glimfall! The purple, blue chunks occasionally fall from the roof, providing equal measures of danger and enrichment. They hammer at the Marias as the rubbery men shelter under the bridge and in the lake. A minute later, it's over. The rubbery men sweep the muddy shards into a communal pile, enough to fill a coal cart. They seem to know the Glimfall was coming. Is this a new talent for observation, or some hitherunto unknown instinct habitual to rubbery kind? Interesting, but what happens under the rails at night? There's a cave. There is a small cave lodging in the rock under the oppressive shadow of the railway bridge. It is a mere hollow in the limestone, no bigger than the inside of a hansom. You've watched the rubbery men visit the little nook in the quiet hours, spending a scant few minutes sequestered in the dark before emerging. The lemon smell of rubbery men is strong enough to make your eyes sting. As you enter the cramped entrance to the unlit cave, the hooting rises to a pained howl. The rubbery men sound most human when in pain. There is a crunching like the dislocation of a shoulder, and a series of wet pops. A nodule of amber rolls past your feet. Your eyes adjust to the gloom, and you see a pile of amber on the floor. The rubbery man is buttoning up his waistcoat and adding a double handful to the pile. The amber is paler than champagne, and when you touch a nodule, it's cold. It must be very fresh indeed. The rubbery man insists that you take some. Well, that's disturbing on a lot of levels. Let's go to the lake. Watch the divers. Now and again, a rubbery man will peel off their clothes and slide noiselessly into the inky waters. Would it be in poor taste to observe? Do such thoughts even have meanings here? Rubbery men are, possibly thankfully, not often seen outside their clothing in London. Their bodies vary more than their faces. This one has scales. That one has an extra tentacle arm, twinned, under his waistcoat. A rubbery man strides out of the lake towards the flat, muddy shore where all the swimmers' clothes have been left. He has many tentacles, and each of them grasps a blind, grey, flat fish. He raises a fish towards his beak, but stops when he sees you, and ducks down behind a rock. Perhaps the rubbery men aren't so prudish about being without clothes, but they are shy when eating. Makes perfect sense. No, we've done this one. And then at night time at the lake. Ask the clay man what's happening. A sharp hooting grabs your attention. At the edges of the Marias there is a hollow ankle deep in black water. There, a dozen rubbery men appear to be arguing. A clay man watches them. The group was settling down to form a circle, but one of them is objectionable enough to be refused entry. The exile honks and whistles as he trudges away. The clay expatriate speaks in a slow hiss, like a landslide in gravel. That one. He points to the expunged Rubbery's back. Traded a lot of amber back in the city. Favoured by the flukes. All changed now. Not very welcome here. The Rubberys have all sat in the wet ground. They're waiting for him to speak. He points to one of the Rubberys wearing a stained white nightgown. He can dream a little. They want to know what he dreams of. The Rubbery Men glance at you. You should go. They don't trust you yet. Then if I wait until night, I'm guessing there's an option to settle into a dream. But I think we will be settling into a dream in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.